Hey there, it's Robin, and you're listening to Healthy Habits for a Healthier Home. I'm here to help you create a healthier life, one simple shift at a time. If you're a mama ready to ditch toxins, clean up your family's nutrition, and build daily habits that support your well-being, you're definitely in the right place. Each episode is packed not only with education, but practical tips and tools to help you transform your health and your home without that feeling of overwhelm. So let's take this journey together to create a thriving, low-tox home for you and your family. If you're ready, say, I am ready. Now let's get into this episode. Hey y'all, welcome back. Today I'm going to be doing something fun. I'm going to be answering your questions about health and wellness. These are a little behind the scene things that I get asked all the time, and I thought, why not share it here? Because if someone's asking, then probably other people are thinking of the same questions and maybe just not asking. So before we get started, I just wanted to say thank you so much for coming on and listening to this content weekly. I truly hope, and my desire and goal behind doing this podcast is for you to be able to walk away each week with a few 1% shifts that make sense for you on your wellness journey where you are right now. I love the feedback that I get. With your feedback, it helps me to grow in the content that I am producing and the people that I want to interview, as well as my personal content that I put out. I invite you guys, if you did not send a question in, but if you have a few on your mind, please send them in via email. You can drop them in the comment here in this podcast. And for future episodes, I might be doing this every once in a while just because I think it's fun. And I think it's a way that, again, if one person had the question, I'm sure many people have the same question that are just not asking. If you are an avid listener or if you are new, welcome. If you could do me a favor and rate and or review this podcast, it would mean a lot to me and it would help us as a community to grow. We have to play that algorithms game, and in order for more people to see our content, we have to like it, share it, download it, all of the things that the algorithms want from us. So if you have already rated and reviewed it, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. If you have a particular episode that you really like, you can also just review that particular episode and then share it with other people so they can do the same. So let's get started. All right. The first question that I want to talk about is, how do you stay consistent with your morning routine? Well, first of all, my morning routine has been built over the last 6 to 8 years. It's not something that I woke up one day and said, I'm going to do this, this, and this, and that's going to make me feel great. It is a process. It is a journey to figure out what it is that you need as your non-negotiables in order to set the tone for the day. And that's what, to me, a morning routine does. It sets your tone. It protects your energy. It makes you become more grounded before you even step into conversations with other beings, whether that be your husband, your children, your work associates, whomever you come in contact with that day. When we are more grounded, when we know that our energy is protected and we have set a tone of calmness, we show up better. That's what I truly believe. So one or two of my non-negotiables, actually I have a few non-negotiables at this point, but the first one is hydration. So I think it is truly important that we get up and we hydrate. And so what I like to say is, having a glass of water in the morning with lemon or not is kind of like a shower for our insides. We get up and we shower our external body, but we never think about showering our internal self. And so by doing that, you have to think about at nighttime while we're sleeping. That is a time for our body to heal, to rest, to recoup, to do the things it needs to do to clean out for the next day. So if we're hydrating in the morning, we're helping to wash it down is kind of the way I want you to envision it. The second thing that I do is I get into the Word. I do some meditating a little bit, and then I journal, because those three things together for me help me to get grounded, helps me to be in my energy, my good energy, and then journaling helps me to get things off my chest or out. And I feel like paper to pencil is so transformative. And I wish more people did it, because we've just gotten away from that paper pencil dynamic where we're doing everything on our phone or we're just talking. And so if you haven't journaled yet, I encourage you to try it out and see how it feels. And when you are trying to come up with your non-negotiables, give it a couple of days, give it a week, and then ask yourself, how do I feel? Does it make me feel good? And then if it does, you kind of build from there and you add another one. And if it doesn't, then you pivot and you try something different. The last thing that is a non-negotiable for me in the morning is movement. I like to get outside. I like to get the sun in my eyes. I like to move my body. And depending on my morning will depend on how much time I spend doing that. And I try and do that in the morning and at night if possible. So those are just my non-negotiables. Yours are going to look very different depending on what stage you are in life, depending on what you're, do you work? Do you not work? How early are you getting up? Are you pushing the limit? Things like that. So you're going to have to just, again, try on different things, experiment with them, see how you feel, and then decide if it's something you want to add to your routine. All right, the second question, what's one thing you avoid in your diet and why? So I've been on this journey for probably 20 plus years. And so there are a lot of different things that I just do not have in my diet any longer because over the years I've just ditched them because what I've realized is they don't make me feel my best. The first I would say is processed sugars. Does that mean I never have processed sugars? No, it just means that in my 90-10, which is kind of how I live, 90% of the time, probably 95% of the time, I just don't even entertain it anymore. It's not something that I bring into the house, and it's really not something that I get when I'm out, unless it's just something where I'm in a situation where that's all that's offered. Another thing that I definitely avoid is seed oils because they're inflammatory. It disrupts our microbiome in our gut. I've seen this with both my girls and myself, and so it's just something that's a non-negotiable for me. Food dyes, if you guys have been following me over the last year, you know that that is something that is an ingredient that we do not have in our food and our home. And that stemmed from a situation with one of our daughters when she was younger. If you haven't heard the story, you can go back I'll link the podcast episode where you guys can learn a little bit more about it. But I've been advocating this year to get food dyes out of our school systems because it is where our children consume a lot of their daily nutrient value. And if it's junk, then we can't expect them to be the learners that we're needing them to be. So sugar, food dyes, inflammatory oils, gluten is something that we just avoid. As I've been expanding my knowledge over the last couple of years, I really want to go to Italy to see how I would react over there, but I'm not so sure it's the actual gluten or if it's the pesticides that we spray in this country that we're working so hard to ban them. So hopefully that will come to fruition at some point in the next couple of years would be amazing. So I do avoid those things because they make me feel better. It makes my energy feel a little bit more kind of steady. I have a clearer mind. And what I would say to you guys is as you are adding in more whole foods and you are crowding out some of this processed stuff, I would encourage you to notice how your body feels. Because I think a lot of times we do things because, quote unquote, we're supposed to, right? Like we're supposed to avoid processed sugar. We're supposed to avoid, whatever else it is that you think you're supposed to avoid. But I would really encourage you to ask yourself, how does my body feel when I add in more whole foods and I have more fiber and more protein and more quality fats? How do I feel? Do I feel more energized? Do I feel more stable? Do I feel less hungry? And so you've got to start really communicating with your body and listening to what your body feels when you are doing these things. And at the same time, ask yourself, how do I feel when I'm not ingesting X, Y, and Z? So I think it's important when we're avoiding something, you know your why, and most importantly, you're linking it to how you feel. All right. The third question, which I absolutely loved, was, do you ever get off track? And if so, what do you do when you fall off? Well, first of all, I think the word fall off is not something that I keep in my vocabulary because I don't think there's ever falling off. I call them dips, but the dips are there to remind us that those foods don't make us feel good or that you feel better when you are nourishing your body in a certain way. The term fall off kind of goes back to that diet mentality. And it's not an all or nothing. This is a journey. And of course, I don't eat the same every single day, especially when I'm traveling. And that's why this summer I put out a travel guide, because it's super important for me, and I'm sure for other people, that when they're traveling, that they think about prepping things and bringing things along, and how do you eat out, and how do you survive when you're going from airport to airport. And these were just things that I've put together that I figured out for myself, helped when I'm not in my regular routine. So, number one, I would encourage you guys to flip your lens on fall off and make it more of a dip and more of a curiosity of how do I feel when I'm ingesting X, Y, and Z? Or how do I feel when I'm not ingesting my nourishing food that I typically do on a normal day? So, the 1% philosophy for me really helps because it gives me the opportunity to give myself grace that this is progress, right? We're always learning. There's no perfection to this. It's a journey, and it's a journey about learning what makes us feel our best. So, for practical examples, if I am in a situation where I'm not in my normal routine and I might be having a dip or having a situation where I can't nourish myself the way I normally do, I typically add more water and hydration. I'll take a walk outside. And when the opportunity comes up, even if I'm eating out, I just do simple, nourishing food. And that really helps me to, again, get back to the way that I like to feel. So I hope that answers that question for the person who asked it. And I hope that it also helps somebody else out there that has that all or nothing mentality to really start to change the lens of perfection and the fall off and make it more of a curiosity and a dip. Okay, two more questions. The fourth one is, what's your go-to meal when you're on short time? So first of all, I am not a foodie, spend 2 hours in the kitchen creating meals. I am always short on time, and I'm always looking for quick, nourishing meals. For me, I like to prep when I get home from the grocery store. I might make, 3 or 4 chicken breasts. I might cut up my veggies, throw them all on a sheet pan and bake them so that I have them throughout the week. I also love my Instapot. So if I get green beans or sweet potatoes, I'll just throw them in there so that they can cook really quick. And I just try to have things on hand in the refrigerator that I can put together super quick. A couple of my favorite meals, number one is a chicken bowl. I like to do sweet potatoes on the bottom, veggies, and then just a piece of grilled chicken. My new favorite chicken recipe, which I can put into the show notes. I think I put it in my newsletter last week. It's where it's kind of a dupe of um, it says it's the dupe of Chick-fil-A grilled nuggets, but I don't make the recipe the way that it says. It says you're supposed to marinate the chicken and then air fry it, but I never do that in enough time. So I just make the mixture. I put the chicken in and then I just air fry the whole thing. So it's a little bit different, but we absolutely love it. It has pickle juice. We use almond milk, but almond milk, salt, pepper, garlic, and then I'll use some like whole garlic pieces and things like that. And you just bake it, and then the chicken is super moist. And so we've been doing that a lot this summer. Another go-to meal that I love recently is it is a brand called Force of Nature, and they create meatballs, and the meatballs have in them organ meat. And I've been trying to like organ meat, or actually not like it. I've been trying to get the nerve up to try organ meat, but I just can't get myself to do it. But I know there is a lot of healthy benefits to it. So when I saw this brand that is super clean and they created some meatballs, I went ahead and bought them and didn't tell my family, and we all ate them, and it was completely fine. And then afterwards I told them, and we've all agreed that they're so good. We get them, weekly, and that's just one thing that we love to do. They're nourishing, they're high in protein. They have, again, the organ meat that is supposed to be good for us. So those are two of my easier meals. But again, I never spend more than 30 minutes in the kitchen making anything. And I love that because I know that I'm getting real food. It's not time consuming too much. And it leaves me to be able to kind of have a balance of eating healthy without feeling overwhelmed by being in the kitchen forever, and still being able to fit in all my other things that I need to get done. So for you, I just want to remind you that healthy does not mean complicated. It doesn't mean overwhelming. It means putting intention around what you will eat for the week and asking yourself what you can do to prep some of these things so that you don't have to spend a lot of time in the kitchen creating meals for your family and for yourself. All right, the very last question that I literally get, I would say on average 10 times a week, is this good for me? And my answer every single time is I do not know. But if you send me the ingredient list, I will be able to help you decipher if it is something that is nourishing for you or if it is something that would maybe not be nourishing for you. So, in saying that, it goes back to being an ingredient detective. We have to be able to understand the ingredients that are combined to make a product in order to understand and be empowered to make a choice that's based off truth. Because the front of the package, which is marketing, getting us to buy something because we think it's good for us, where they put all natural or keto or gluten free. A lot of those things are just marketing gimmicks because if you flip over the package and you look at the ingredients, that is where truth lies. So we're probably thinking, you're always talking about being an ingredient detective. And I say that with my whole heart. It is the very best tool that you can have in your tool belt because it empowers you to make the best decision for you and or your family. So the couple of ingredients that I quickly scan and look for: processed oils, because they're super inflammatory and they're not good for your gut health. Processed sugars. So I look to see what type of sugar might be in that, how many different forms of sugar could be in it, and the amount of grams of sugar. And is it made from the actual food, like fruit? Is that what's creating the sugar? Or is it highly processed, added in sugar? Natural flavors is definitely a deal breaker for me. There's no consistency or standard behind the term natural flavor. Natural does not mean natural. It means that it's mimicking something natural, but that it's made through a chemical process. Even if it's organic, it still means that there's been some type of processing happening. Now, if the company will disclose what the natural flavor is made from or the organic natural flavor, we could have a conversation. But 9 times out of 10, when I reach out to a company and I ask, they will not disclose. They say that it's proprietary blend, which to me is an absolute no. But that's just me personally. And lastly, food dyes. If anything has food dyes in it, we're not picking it up. It's just something that goes back on the shelf or in the freezer or wherever it's coming from. Because if you think about it, when you go to the produce section, none of those have oils in it. None of them have natural flavors. None of them have food dyes because they're a natural form of food. So when you're thinking about those things, I just want you to have like an image of the produce section versus wherever you're getting that from in the store and why it is that they had to add those things in order for it to taste good. Becoming an ingredient detective, like I said, is your best defense in knowledge. It's your best defense in knowing what you're putting in your body or on your body. And I just really feel like if we all were better at understanding our ingredients, we would all be able to make better choices. And those companies, if people were not buying from them, would have to transform what they're creating. Because as a consumer, how we shop and our dollar is what's funding these things. So if we stop doing that, they're going to have to pivot. All right. So as we wrap up, I just wanted to recap really quick. We talked about morning routines and we talked about what we need to do to create a morning routine. I shared what my morning routine is, but for you, you're going to need to experiment and find what works for you because it's taken me years to create something that I feel is sustainable, that are my non-negotiables for certain reasons. We also talked about food choices, why I ingest certain things and why I don't. And again, this is going to be a bio-individual choice depending on how you feel when you're adding in those foods and how you feel when you are swapping out some of the other ones. We talked about getting back on quote unquote track and reframing and looking at it from a lens of curiosity and a dip rather than a getting off track and that all or nothing mentality. We talked about quick meals and how we can have some of those weekly so that we don't feel so overwhelmed preparing these whole food meals that are super simple for our families. And lastly, figuring out if something is healthy for us or not. And that is by becoming an ingredient detective. So I hope that these 5 questions, you learned a little bit more about me. I hope that you are thinking about things that you might want to try on this week and which 1% or which question really resonated with you. I'd love to hear from you. So if you want to send me an email or DM me and let me know what you found of value, but also if you have questions, please share them, because if you're thinking of that question, somebody else is probably thinking of that question too. And we're going to end with, the reminder that it is the little shifts that we make daily that create those long lasting health habits that create the transformation that we're looking for. So remember that it's those 1% shifts that we make on a daily that are consistent, that help us to create those healthy habits that will help us to have that lasting health that we're all craving. I hope that you guys have an amazing rest of your week. I look forward to hearing from you soon, and take care. That episode had so many great takeaways. I hope you feel inspired and more empowered to make small 1% shifts on your wellness journey this week. I'd love to hear what resonated with you. If you want to leave a review, share your thoughts, and let me know how you're going to be implementing these 1% shifts into your life. And don't forget to subscribe and share this episode with another mama who could use a little wellness love. Want to stay connected? Join me on Instagram and Facebook at Live Life Balanced with Robin. Check out my website at livelifebalancedwithrobin.com for more resources, and grab yourself some freebies while you're there. Until next time, I hope you find peace, love, and light by breathing, being present, and allowing for all possibilities to come your way. See y'all next week. Love to y'all.